Hi, Kerri McKenna Reece here, trauma recovery coach, supervisor, and accredited complex trauma instructor, guiding others through the pain and complexity of complex trauma. Today, I'm going to talk about something that feels so central to living with complex trauma in our daily lives. It's the overwhelming sense that we're different from everyone else. Do you feel that way? Do you feel that the people around you somehow got this secret handbook on how to act, what to say, and the appropriate way to say it? Like an insider's manual filled with secret words and powers, enabling them to authentically connect with everyone around them without a bit of trouble relating to them and anxiety free. And yet here we are in the same exact space, feeling very alone in the room, wondering why didn't we get the memo? I know this all too well. And if you've walked in those shoes, it's important you know feeling different is a near universal experience for those of us who grew up with childhood trauma. So let's unpack this a little bit together. Is this feeling real or is it just in our minds? This feeling of being different isn't exclusive to complex trauma. Everybody feels out of place sometime in their life. Maybe you were different in ways that stood out. Maybe it was your family's culture, socioeconomic status, or even strict or unconventional parents. Those differences are real and they shape how we connect. But for many of us, trauma layered on another level of isolation. Maybe your home wasn't safe to invite others to, whether it was cluttered, chaotic, or unpredictable. Maybe you never knew what kind of mood your parents or caregivers were going to be in, or if conflict would erupt at any moment. Maybe one of your parents was an alcoholic. For some of us, it was the physical environment, broken furniture, unwashed dishes, or signs of neglect that you knew would draw judgment from others. But for others, it was the emotional unpredictability, the yelling, the silence, or the constant tension that made our home feel more like a battlefield than a refuge. There's really no rest in that. So when your home doesn't feel safe, it's hard to imagine inviting others into that space. Growing up, we may have felt like we had to hide what was happening behind closed doors, creating an invisible wall between us and our peers. That was my experience. Even though the outside world didn't know what was going on in my family or behind closed doors, I carried the weight of shame because of it, right? Because of all the secrets I was forced to keep. It left me with this profound sense that my life was fundamentally wrong, broken, and unacceptable, that I was unacceptable. I always felt as if I was missing something essential that everyone else seemed to have. Trauma has this way of amplifying the sense that we don't belong. No matter what room I walked into, everyone seemed to know the unspoken rules, and I'd be standing there lost, trying not to only figure out the rules, but exactly what team I was on. That isolation, it makes us feel like perpetual outsiders trying to navigate a world where everyone else seems to fit and flow naturally. And because of this, we withdraw even more, most of the times triggered by our own self-talk, the ghosts of the past, telling ourselves that we don't belong, or worse, that we don't deserve to belong. And there's more because childhood trauma, it conditions us. We become hypervigilant, you know, our nervous system always scans the room for danger. We learn to withdraw and disassociate because connection with ourselves and others, it felt so unsafe as a child. And these patterns that we develop for survival as children, they make us feel even more different, even more disconnected as adults. And there's a common feeling amongst people with complex trauma, and that is that others are on the same shared wavelength, naturally connecting while we're left trying to decode the signals. And while part of this might just be the universal human experience of feeling out of place sometimes, for those of us with trauma histories, it can feel much more pronounced. Today, we know what research has proven, and that is that pervasive trauma suffered in our developmental years, which is between birth and 8 years old, it affects brain development, particularly in areas tied to connection and trust. The way our brains adapted to survive may also make it harder to connect with others in the ways we want. And this isn't just in our minds, it's rooted in the way we are systematically impacted by the childhood neglect or abuse. And then there's the emotional weight of it all. Feeling different, it creates this cycle of self-doubt where we get lost in the feeling of what's wrong with me. And when we're already carrying the burden of trauma, the shame of it all that we've suffered, that's heavy. That's very overwhelming. So, where does that leave us? Are we doomed to feel disconnected forever? No. But healing takes intentional effort. It's a daily decision to heal, to always choose to move forward, to dismantle the principles, practices, and patterns of the systematic abuse we suffered. First, you need to recognize that feeling different isn't a flaw, it's a reflection of experiences you couldn't control. When you were a child, you reacted normally to some very abnormal situations. So today, it's okay to feel out of sync sometimes. What matters is how you move forward, making decisions that serve you well in your life today. It involves understanding your needs, building new habits, setting boundaries, and stepping into who you authentically are underneath all of that you've suffered and survived. Connecting with yourself and others is one small step at a time. Progress isn't linear. It's messy. It's full of unexpected potholes that seem determined to swallow your shoes, uphill climbs that feel like scaling Mount Everest, and downhill tumbles where finding your footing feels impossible. That's what healing looks like. It's not easy and it's not pretty, but it's absolutely possible and absolutely worth it. And while it's important to honor ourselves and the road we've traveled, it's equally important to remember that our past doesn't define our future. Feeling different doesn't have to mean feeling isolated forever. Today, we choose how we define our lives, not our parents, not our siblings, not our history. The choice is ours alone. If connection feels scary or impossible, start small. If you've been isolating, try saying hello to people throughout the day. It doesn't have to be deep conversation, just practice acknowledging others and being seen. If your relationships feel superficial, try listening more deeply. So much learning happens in silence and vulnerability. Listen more deeply and then share just a little bit about yourself. Connection grows in small, safe moments. I used to just say, I love hearing you tell stories about your childhood. The best thing I can say about mine is that I survived. This allowed me not only to honor them and participate in the conversation, but it also allowed me to honor myself. And it opened the door for further conversation if and when I felt comfortable. So, understanding your needs and learning how to set boundaries around them is also extremely important. When you know why you want to say no and how to clearly say it, you'll trust yourself more in all of your relationships. That trust sets you free to connect without fear. No is a complete sentence. Nothing else needs to be said. No explanation is needed. Connection is a skill, and like any skill, it takes practice. There will be missteps and moments that feel uncomfortable, but those moments are part of the process. It's important to keep trying, even when it feels hard. We may always feel a little different, and that's okay. Healing isn't about becoming perfect, it's about becoming ourselves. The wisdom we gain from healing is a gift we can share with others who are struggling. That is why I'm here today doing what I do. When we meet someone who's in the thick of their pain, they'll see hope in you. Why? Because you've been there and you understand their pain. So embrace who you are. Take it in one small step at a time. Healing is a journey, it's not a destination. Every day, choose to keep walking forward, learning about you, putting one foot in front of the other, embracing what you need and honoring what you love. And let me say this, there's beauty in being different. The world needs more diversity of thought, experience, and perspective. Sometimes the very things that make us feel out of place are the things that make us valuable and unique. Energy attracts energy. People are in your path for a reason. It's only when we stop, say hi, and take the time to get to know each other that we learn what has brought us all together. I always find that someone has a strength where I'm weak and vice versa. If you're ready to take the next step in your healing, check out the links in the description for resources. You don't have to do this alone. Connection and healing are possible, even if they feel far away right now. And remember, every small step counts. You're enough exactly how you are. Keep moving forward together.